Today's episode of Black Cat Shadow is brought to you by LootCrate.com. You can save 10% on any new subscription at www.trylootcrate.com/blackcat. Just enter promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings on this awesome subscription service.
Is imagination simply contained in the mind? Or does it tap into an unseen world with messages waiting to be told? There is a place where legends cross over into our world, where strange visions and whispers beckon, and superstition takes hold. Step into the Black Cat's shadow.
Welcome back to the Black Cat Shadow. I'm your host, Andy, podcasting from Kansas City, Missouri.
And I'm Phantom Dark Dave, coming at you live from the heart of Texas. Our guest today is an up-and-coming director of the horror genre. He has reinvented what we know from cult classics like Piranha and House on Sorority Row. Now, he joins us for his newest project as he rejuvenates the Saw franchise with the upcoming film Jigsaw. Please welcome to the show, Pete Goldfinger.
Hey, everybody.
How's it going, Pete?
How goes it? It's going good. One thing I just want to tell you is the original was called House of Sorority Row, but the remake that we did was just called Sorority Row. So there you have it.
Which you'll find out quick. We love it.
I hope as you girls prepare to go out into the world that the things that you've learned here in Theta Pi will help you to do the right thing.
We have a problem.
What is it?
Garrett cheated on me.
You cheat on one Theta, you cheat on every Theta.
That boy needs to be taught a lesson.
You all right?
It's showtime.
What's going on, babe? Are you okay? Oh, my God.
Ew.
Guys, get, whoa, she's convulsing.
What did you do?
Go get the car now.
She's really dead.
What? She really died, and it's my fault.
Hey, Garrett, we're gonna take care of this, okay?
What's happening? I can't see. You're dead, dummy.
It's a body. Do we wrap it in the blanket as is, or do we chop it into little pieces first? All right, everybody spread out and find sharp rocks to dismember the body with. How long are you gonna keep this going? What the hell did you do?
She wasn't dead.
Oh my God. Megan's dead, and we're all responsible.
I don't see a way out of this.
Maybe there is. I'm not gonna let this ruin our lives.
If we all stick to the same story, no one will ever know.
Congratulations, graduates.
As happy as this day is, one of our sisters is still missing. To Megan, we love and miss you.
Oh my God. It's a prank. It's the only explanation.
Hello? I have one, guys. Megan came back from the dead. Now she wants to kill us.
Megan? She was wearing a hooded gown.
Half the Greek system is in hooded graduation gowns right now.
It's not Megan.
She is rotting in a mine shaft.
We all deserve to die.
Don't think I'm afraid of you. I run a house with 50 crazy
Well, thanks so much. I'm glad somebody does. You know, I mean, I like it, but there are very few you can find out there that will put it on their to watch list.
Well, I think that's a shame because the movie really has a lot to offer, obviously it's a slasher movie, but also has a lot of like understated comedy to it. It has a really good sense of humor, I think. So it really like gives you a good contrast to the horror. And I think it's one of those movies that you almost have to watch more than once to kind of get the humor sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. it's interesting you say that because, we grew up, I think we're probably a little older than you guys, but my writing partner Josh and I grew up in the 70s. And if you look at, stuff like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and, some of those Friday the 13th, there's a lot of humor in those. I mean, not really, but I wouldn't call them comedies, but there are some light moments that we always felt make it feel like real life. And by the time, writing in the aughts and, as we have been, there really is, there's not as much desire for comedy in horror as there used to be. And so, Sorority Row did not do all that well, and I could give you a million reasons why, but one of the things we learned is that, there isn't much of an appetite for those lighter moments in horror. But they did a remake of Nightmare on Elm Street about, I don't know, maybe 7-8 years ago, and it just had no humor. It feels like it's all sort of this trench coat kind of stuff now. But anyway, I'm glad you guys like that part of it. Unfortunately, it just seems like people just want horror to go darker and darker,
Yeah, and it's funny, like watching the deleted scenes. I think they were hilarious. I mean, myself, I thought you should have kept them in, but I can understand like with pacing issues and things like that.
Yeah, and I think I do get it. Like there are some people who really want to go to a horror movie and not be taken out not be taken out of the story by a little bit of comedy. And then I think there are a lot of people who go to horror movies for the fun of it, and that's what it used to always be. But now it's a little more like living the reality of it. I mean, if you look at Get Out, that was great, by the way, that movie, and I loved it. But it was really dark, and it was really serious. And you look at like my favorite is The Shining. There's so much humor in that, even though it's dark. But these days, it's a lot darker.
Looking at Sorority Row, like looking at the story, how did you approach writing the remake? Did you want to take the original script and just give it a modern spin, or did you want to just kind of come at it fresh with a reimagining on just the basic idea?
Well, it's a good question. One of the things that happened around that time, and I've said this before, but we were comedy guys, and then in 2005 maybe, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Dawn of the Dead remakes came out, and my writing partner, who's like a very savvy business guy, Josh Stolberg, said they're going to remake all of these movies because these two did so well. We got to find some kind of obscure titles that we can get the rights to and write them. And so we did. We got Sorority Row, we got Piranha. And when we were, the great thing about House of Sorority Row is part of the beauty of that movie was that it was so low budget. Like it was really, it was so low budget that it was like a lot of the fun lay within that. So, the question was, how do we keep that sort of fun of the low budgetness of it, but bring it to a bigger audience? And so part of that was, some bigger kills we wanted to do, and more investment in the characters, which we thought was missing from the original. But we do love the original. It's nothing against the original, but that was sort of our goal. A lot of times, when you're trying to make something more modern, you really have to ask yourself, who are these characters and how do they fit into the current world? And what is our current world? Even in Sorority Row, we had like a lot of social media stuff, even then. And now look at it. I mean, it's everywhere.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I thought there was some interesting aspects that you guys fit in there, like making them having to like walk on eggshells basically because, the sister of the person they killed is like now around and asking questions and things like that. I think that I almost would have liked to see more with that angle, but I did like the addition of that character, definitely.
Yeah, well, it was a long time ago. There are things in that I would like to do differently. There's never, one of the reasons that it's really hard to watch movies that you wrote, for any artist to look at anything they've done is you always see it through what you would have done, through the lens of what you've done. And also, you get so close to it that like you can't even, you can't really assess it anymore because you see all the opportunities you missed and, all the things you wish you'd done differently. And that's what makes it so hard.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you mentioned that there is about the depth of the character depth, and there's specific motivations for each character to keep their secret, and it really keeps the movie interesting. There's political motivations, there's personal, that it has a lot more depth than the run-of-the-mill slasher, in my opinion.
Well, that's just listening to you. The movie has gone up in my eyes. You guys have really helped to elevate the movie for me. So thank you. I guess it was better than I thought.
No, I mean, definitely. And I think it's one of those ones you have to kind of, I think a rewatch really helps, with that too. Like people, I think on the first watch, I think a lot of that detail gets lost, maybe. I don't know. But
I would say if you want to watch it, you should probably watch it a few dozen times, and even buy a couple of CDs to give to your friends, DVDs.
Yeah, definitely.
Watch
we
it,
highly
download
recommend
it 100 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
On secondary media. Where's my secondary media?
Yeah, really. So I noticed that Mark Rosman, who was the executive producer, and he was actually the guy that wrote the original House of Sorority Row. And so, did he get involved in the writing process at all during this?
Well, we sat down with him a couple times, and he weighed in, and he was so great because a lot of times there are people who just don't get that the torch has been passed on, and that can be tricky. We did a draft of Halloween a couple of years ago that actually never got made over from Miramax, and there are certain people that really hold on to their idea of what it should be, and you end up having to say to somebody, look, you weren't hired to do it, and they were hired. A lot of times, like when you get rewritten, and I used to never understand getting rewritten by another writer, and a lot of times you get rewritten or things get rebooted, not because somebody's a better writer than somebody else, but because you get so entrenched in your own ideas that it's really hard to completely leave them behind and move on to something new. So, a lot of this, Mark was smart enough to know that like his time had come, and now it was time. I mean, his time on this project had come, and he was really good about just trying to be as helpful as he could. I really like that guy.
Oh, it's awesome that, I like the old, I don't want to say the old guard, but kind of like that. They're willing to pass the torch on to like fresh blood and let you guys give a unique spin to their ideas and also to, give you the freedom to come up with your own ideas. That's awesome. I think that definitely makes for a more relevant movie that can speak to like today's audiences.
Hey guys, it's Dakota. I just wanted to let you guys know about Loot Crate. Loot Crate is a monthly subscription box service for epic geek and gamer gear and pop culture items. For less than $20 a month, you can get 6 to 8 items that include licensed gear, apparel, collectibles, and a unique one-of-a-kind item specifically from Loot Crate, and much, much more. By supporting Loot Crate, you guys support our podcast, which means the world to us. So you can go and sign up right now at www.trylootcrate.com/blackcat and enter the code BRIDGE10 to save 10% on any new subscription. That code again is BRIDGE10. The website is www.trylootcrate.com/blackcat.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
But yeah, I mean, definitely. And, another classic that you guys took on was the Piranha movies.
Yeah.
See that gap right there?
Yeah.
Quake opened that up. Now it's a connecting passage.
Descending fissure.
Oh my God. It's at least 200 feet, Novak. Sam?
Something bit me!
Sam, what are you seeing down there?
Oh my God.
Sam!
It's like this body's been in the water for weeks.
I want to know what the hell this thing is doing in my lake.
Is that a piranha?
This particular piranha vanished 2 million years ago.
I'm thinking about closing the lake.
There's us, and there's 20,000 kids. You do the math.
Check it out!
The sheriff has declared an emergency.
Don't worry, we got Pete over here!
Piranha hunt in packs. The first bite draws blood. The blood draws the pack.
Oh, I'm all over that one. Can I take that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Pete, I got to ask you about some Piranha, man, because I absolutely love this movie, and I've seen it lots of times. It's so cool to hear you talk about how you and Josh started out kind of as comedy guys, because there is comedy in any of the movies, probably in Piranha the most, because at certain points of the time, I almost forget I'm watching a horror movie because I'm laughing my ass off, and it's such a, except for when things start to take a turn for the worst, it's such a, fun movie. You wish you were there on scene. But what I want to ask, you kind of took the words out of my mouth when I was going to originally ask about your inspiration for the remake. You kind of touched on, you guys knew that this stuff was where you needed to be, and you were smart enough to go get you some titles on these, and especially with a movie that has, it's a cult classic and it has a sequel, and you still managed to bring something really fresh and especially new for today's audience, and the cast is amazing in it. When you wrote it, was it always intended to have Richard Dreyfuss in the beginning?
No. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I give a lot of credit to Bob Weinstein. Very few do, but that was his idea. He thought, wouldn't that be a nice idea, a nice touch to put in? That scene wasn't even in it until Bob got Richard. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bob got Richard Dreyfuss and said, we really, we have this idea, which has a nice natural tie-in, of course, to Jaws. And, he comes in for a day, probably cashes a bigger paycheck than I've made on that movie so far. And then, and then walks out. So it was good for everyone, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And for people like us who, we watch movies, we review movies, we talk about movies, but we still get giddy inside when we see somebody who comes back and reprises a role or makes a connection like that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know getting into this movie I should have known getting into it with all the Spring Breakers, just the amount of nudity that was going to be in it. But at some point I found myself saying, I wonder if they were going to ever change the title to like Tits and Fish or Fish and Tits,
Oh yeah, Fish and Tits. Piranha 3D : Fish and Tits. That would have been great. What a title that would have been. Well, if they make a third one that goes straight to DVD, we might be able to get away with that. And we sort of do a subgenre porn horror comedy, We had a couple of adult film stars in that movie, you may remember.
Yeah, I do, especially with the swimming sequence that was underwater. I mean, the cinematography on the movie is amazing, too, with the way the camera plays tricks and the angles go around. You guys all work together really well to bring your script to life.
Just a funny story about, you mentioned all the TNA in the movie. When I went out they invited us on the set, and we weren't in Lake Havasu. I forget where we were. Victoria, maybe, I forget. But we were shooting there, and my wife was 8.5 months pregnant. And I left, and I said, honey, I got to go do this. And the next thing I know, Josh Stolber, my writing partner, is posting pictures on Facebook of me with, like, semi-naked clad women, like, next to me, out on the deck. And my wife is looking at these pictures and just like, oh, my God, like, I'm having a baby in 2 weeks, and this is what he's doing? It looked like, I'd gone off to some romp, in Arizona. 800 extras in those scenes. So it was like a crazy, there were just people everywhere, and nobody was wearing any clothes, and everybody was dripping blood. It was a really fun day.
When you guys were writing this down, it looks like you had a lot of fun, primarily with just being super creative with the death scenes. And I had read that you guys actually, that the movie had won a Screamin' Award for a most memorable mutilation. I'm gonna throw this out, a little spoiler alert, but can you tell our listeners about let's see, how can I describe it? The boat scalping.
The boat scalping. Oh, yeah. That was
because that's what did it.
I'm not afraid to say it. That was Josh's kill. I've had my days with some kills, but that was my writing partner's. So the bit there is that, quite simply, a woman's hair gets caught in a motor engine, and it does exactly what you would think would happen, which is it doesn't just pull the hair out. When you get that much hair, you're going to lose a little more than your hair. And we'll leave it at that. Go watch the movie. Let's go see what that award's about. Also, I should say that movie, to this day, holds the record for most gallons of fake blood in a movie. So there's that. Another little first, a record breaker right there. Maybe it didn't make most dollars at the box office, but it made most buckets of blood in a horror film.
Perfect. Yeah, actually, I was reading about that, and it said something like it was like 75 gallons a day of fake blood. And just looking at, how long the shoot was, that's a lot of fake blood.
Oh, so much fake blood everywhere.
Damn simple. Best ones are. You want mercy? Play by the rules.
Any identification on the victim?
Puzzle piece. But Jigsaw has been dead for 10 years.
It's not him. Can't be.
This was on the body.
The truth will set you free. I'm chasing a dead man. Just running scared. It's the copycat.
Live or die. The choice is yours.
You know what happens if we don't follow the rules?
The blood under the fingernails of our victim, John Kramer, the Jigsaw killer.
That's impossible.
It was a game. Game's gonna be won. It's Jigsaw.
No, it's not creepy at all.
I honestly think talking about blood is probably a perfect segue because as great as this movie was in the immense amount of creative death scenes, the Saw franchise is also known for an insane amount of creative death scenes. And I know because the film is not out yet, we don't want to give anything specific away, but it is the movie that everybody I know is looking forward to for this Halloween. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of your role, how you got involved with, and what we can expect with Jigsaw?
Well, I can only say so much because, boy, can you get like that is one of the, it's like first rule of Fight Club. First rule of Saw franchise is do not talk about Saw. But what I can tell you, I mean, I can tell you some things leading up to it, which was, we met with Orrin Koulis, and who is the producer of the original, and he and Mark Berg own a ton of it creatively. And he basically said, listen, we don't need to do another Saw. But, if we could come up with something where, I can go to Comic-Con with my head proud and feel like if we can get just the right take, we'll do it. And we met with him at his wife's restaurant, Tironi. God, I hope I got that right. I just plugged his wife and maybe said it wrong. Over in Hollywood, which was great because we'd have these great lunches. That part of it was fun. But for a year and a half, 3 pitches, all these different things. We go to Lionsgate. They weren't sure. And everybody felt the same way, which is unless we can get this right, we're just not doing it, And so, finally I remember when we wrapped production, I got an email from Orrin to all the gang, and he's like, well, it took a couple of years, but we finally did it. And I forwarded him the email from my agent telling me about our first meeting for Saw, and it was 4 years ago. Like, that's how long it took from first meeting to getting that thing done. So, we're certainly really proud of it. What I can say is if you haven't seen the trailer, I really recommend it. It is, I don't know who cut the trailer. I wish I did so I could give him all the credit in the world because the trailer, I just love it. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I think it's really, really great. And we're really looking forward to it. I mean, the hope is we can find something that everybody wants to see, what we can, find what was so great about the originals and keep it going, Did I tap dance long enough?
Were you guys, fans of the series and just desired to do another one, or was this just something you knew that had to be done?
Well, what we knew is that I will tell you, I think that the first one, the original Saw, and if you take out all the gruesome kills, is a great story. I think it is a great story. I think the second one possibly is as good as the first. And then as you move forward, there's great stuff in all of them. But, as time went on, it got a little harder to keep up. Here's the thing that I would say, handing down my wisdom from the mountaintops like I know anything, which I don't. But, the more, when you're making sequels, the more entrenched you get into having to justify what's happening into backstory. Like, in other words, is Mike Myers dead? Like, we've definitively killed him so many times. And every time you have to explain something that exists that contradicts something in the last, prior film, you're losing. That's losing. So, part of our, this is as much as I'll say, but part of what we wanted to do is just move forward, not get hung up too much on things that are going to bog us down with, are going to put just a heavy, it's tough to launch a franchise, and that they were not trying to launch a franchise with, and this is spoiler alert if you haven't watched any of Jigsaw, any of Saw, which I'm sure everyone has. When you have a protagonist or an antagonist that's dying of cancer, that limits you moving forward. So they had the more sequels they had to do, the more they had to justify that, you know, and that's just a lot of wasted time to keep having to come up with reasons why this person's still alive or that person's come back, you know, and eventually you can drown on it, you know, and that's what we're trying to bring this thing back to the surface, you know.
Well, I can tell you that everybody I know is super excited about it. I know not everybody's a huge Saw fan, but I know a lot of folks love the first one. Kind of like you said, it starts out pretty strong, and from there, some people have their favorite sequels and whatnot. But when I had heard, you know, word of this, I was like, I got goosebumps, because anytime there's a franchise that you love, you get excited for another one. And I don't care if it's one that needs another sequel or doesn't need a sequel. When there's another sequel, you get excited. And then, like you said, the trailer came out. And, you know, somebody was like, oh, did you hear the trailer was out? I'm like, no, you got to be kidding me. So instantly watch the trailer. And then, again, the goosebumps return. And you're just like, man, kind of like I'm picturing how you said it. You said that, you know, we're not going to do a sequel unless we could do it right. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, man, did they do it? And so I know everybody's excited. All of our listeners for sure are excited. So I know I just want to say thanks for bringing it back, because we all need more Jigsaw in our life.
Well, may I say you're welcome, but it did not cost me. I'm not the one financing it, but you're welcome. I'm glad to, you know, I could make you happy in that way. Yeah, it's good. It's going to be good. I'm really excited to see how people respond to it. I mean, I have not seen it yet, the final cut, and I will reserve judgment, but I really loved the rough cut I saw. It was really, really great. And the kills are just fantastic, you know. If there are any kills, I'm not at liberty to say, as you know, whether, you know, what happens in this film.
Maybe this is really your April Fool's Day remake in disguise.
Well, let me just say this. What you guys don't know, I'll give one spoiler alert. It's Jigsaw: the musical. So get ready, everybody.
Awesome.
Oh, I'm down. Oh, yeah.
Jigsaw is going to sing. Jigsaw sings in this one. Wait till you see it. Full orchestra. Got a great outfit. Tap dances. Fantastic. You're going to love it.
Well, I'm a big Fred Astaire fan, so that's totally okay with me.
Yeah. You know, one thing I would talk about is I'm actually flying out to Qatar this weekend to start second season on a show I was working on last year called Medina. That was just a Comic-Con last month and was amazing. In fact, Rolling Stone called it top 20. It was on the top 25 things we saw at Comic-Con list. It's called Medina, and it's the first television show produced in Qatar that's being aimed at. We don't know who the distributor is going to be yet, but it's very much aimed at like a Netflix kind of thing. And it's been we wrote the first season. Really looking forward to the second season. Going over there, it's kind of like it's like half Lost, the TV show, half oh my God, I'm spacing on Homeland. So it's like one half is a group of people that don't know where they are, and the other half is the group of people who are trying to figure out what happened to them. And, you know, it probably will come out sometime next year. I would definitely love people to keep their eyes out for it, because I think it's going to be good.
Awesome. Well, now everybody knows about it.
There you go. That's right.
Yeah, once again, I'll tell everybody to go out and see Sorority Row if you haven't seen it, and see the Piranha movies. They're great fun.
I just want to say I fell victim to something. When I was preparing for this, I rewatched Piranha, but it was easy to do because I like it. But I went ahead and I saw Piranha Double D, and Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're only involved in that because it's based on your characters, right? You didn't actually write this. You and Josh didn't write the script.
No. We produced it. And there's a lot of stuff. This is what I'll say about that movie. I honestly think it's one of David Hasselhoff's best performances at playing himself.
He is hilarious in that movie.
So great in that movie. He really is. I loved him in that. Yeah.
I don't think I was impressed with David Hasselhoff that much since I saw him in SpongeBob. Got to be honest.
Yeah, I stand corrected. His second best performance, SpongeBob, and him eating a hamburger late at night drunk. That might be on it. You know, one of his greatest hits as well.
Well, Pete, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
My pleasure. Sure, I'm so flattered you reached out. I really appreciate it. The writers don't usually get much attention, so it's nice of you to reach out.
Yeah, no, we definitely appreciate like a well written story, and I think that's one of the elements that really drives a movie, whether horror movie or not. So,
well, I hope to write one of those someday. That's my goal.
Awesome.
I'd say you're going on number 4, but okay.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning into this episode. And as this is the last episode of October for us, we want to wish everybody out there a happy Halloween. Whether you are going out trick-or-treating with your kids, or watching a horror movie marathon, having a party, whatever. We just hope that everybody has a great time. And we do love reading feedback from our listeners and hearing your thoughts on the show. One way you can give us feedback is by leaving us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to our show at. Yeah, when you leave a review on iTunes, it really helps us get higher in the iTunes charts when we get more ratings and reviews. So we appreciate everybody that does that, has done that for us. And our theme for November is going to be possession/exorcism movies. So we're going to be having some interviews from a movie that is currently on Netflix. It's called The Black Room. It's a possession theme movie. So we're going to have a couple interviews from that movie. Me, Dakota, and Dave all sat down and had a chat about exorcism movies and possession movies. So we're going to have those in there for the month of November. We're going to start off the month though with an interview that doesn't quite fit into the theme. It's our first interview for the month of November is going to be with Lee Scott. He is a director. He has worked on many films for the Asylum production company. You may know that company from such films as Sharknado, but Lee Scott has done he did Beast of Bray Road, he did The Exorcism of Gil Bowers, he did Flu Birds, he did a lot of he's done a lot of movies like those. So tune in for that next episode coming out. It was a fun conversation that we had with him. And I also want to let you guys know that Dave has appeared on some other podcasts, and he has a couple of episodes that he's done recently here. He was on a podcast called the Fright Club podcast, and it is hosted by George and Hope, and they're a couple of great hosts. And so Dave joins them on episode 113, where they talk about Hammer horror. They list off their favorite Hammer horror films, or ones that they think that people should check out. Also upcoming, Dave is going to be on the Creature Features podcast with Chunky Larry, and they are going to be talking Halloween 3. I'm really looking forward to check that episode. I love that movie, and I know they will give it its due diligence, and so I think you guys should check that out. It's a great podcast as well. That'll be an upcoming episode, so stay tuned for that. And as always, you can find us out there on social media. You can find us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @BlackCatPodcast. If you want to follow Dave on Twitter, he is @PhantomDarkDave. And you can also find us out there on Facebook and Horror Amino as well. Oh, and we also have we've had a YouTube channel for some time now, but there wasn't really a whole lot of videos on there. Now all of our podcast episodes are now up on YouTube, so you can go there and check them out. That's just another way for you to listen to the episodes. You can reach us on email. Our email address is blackcatpodcast@gmail.com, and Dakota has his own email. If you want to reach out to him, it's dakshadowbane@gmail.com. I'll spell that out for you. It's DAKSHADOWBANE@gmail.com. I know he'd love to hear from you guys, and we would too. That's another place where you can leave us feedback about the show, or thoughts, or discussion ideas, anything like that. Yeah, our website is www.blackcatshadow.com. There you'll find all of our episodes, as well as the links to where you can download them to listen to them whenever you'd like. And also you'll find a link to our eBay movie store. It's just another way to help out the podcast. We have some pretty cool movies on there. We have a lot of brand new VHS tapes of old 50s and 60s horror movies on there I think that people will get into. Go check those out. And remember, guys, to take a closer look at the world around you, and you may just find that it is stranger and more mysterious than you thought, especially in the Black Cat Shadow.